So much for staying with us. So, which election has garnered more attention than any other in recent times? I would have to say it's the election of the new colonel of the Accompong Maroons, Chief Richard Curry. All kind of excitement and people sharing his photograph and people are calling Black Panther and people asking what he's going to do for the people of Accompong. Chief Curry, you hearing the Chief?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Thank you so much for joining us on Beyond the Headlines. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, what an excitement over your election. How you managed to get so much attention?
Boy, I just think the people wanted a change and a change for better, you know. I think we've gone through a whole lot and we've just had about enough. And I think the message that I have carried throughout my campaign has really resonated with my people, and I think that was really what made it such a special moment.
They're being claimed. I have my Monroe friends messaging me and saying, hold on, he's from the school up on the hill and all kind of things. So okay, Tony Morrison now is going pow, right, Tony? And your Shane and Earl and Jermaine and all the Monroe people. But so obviously though, the excitement of the campaign permeated way beyond Accompong. As I said, I heard Protege was up there during the campaign, doing dub for you and campaigning for you. So was that a deliberate was there a deliberate attempt on your part to try to get wider national attention?
No, to be honest, I mean, anybody know me or anybody know Protege knows that we go back from ID and E. You know, we go prep school, we go high school, and we connect right through college, even though we weren't in the same university studying the same courses. When he came back to Jamaica, it was, you know, just like two brothers link back up, you know. And I mean, before the music and all, it's not a musician, it's a brother, you know. So, to the eyes that see things now, it would look like something that is orchestrated or set up, but my brother just come give me a strength and show me some support, you know, while I was chasing a dream that, you know, I shared with him in many different conversations.
Okay, all right. Well, let me get to the substance of the issue now, because I've long been interested in the Maroons, right, and this whole idea of a state within a state. But it's never felt to me properly that the boundaries have been properly enumerated, that people are quite clear on what that means. And I see you saying that one of the things you do want to do is to deal with the reaffirm what you call the Constitution of Accompong. Tell me what's the significance of that.
All right. So, first of all, let me say, you know, the issue in itself has been one that you, as you rightfully say, has been talked about on many different avenues, many different roundtables, right? But the fact of the matter is, there are certain things that need to be in place if a state as a person of international law is to be recognized. And those things are, you know, a permanent population, which we have evident in our voters list just conducted. We have a defined territory, which is the cockpits. We have a government and a council, right, which is recognized. You would have seen it all over the papers, right? And we have the capacity to enter into relations with other states, evident in the signing of the 1738 treaty with the British. Now, the confusion with people and what they keep saying is that, oh, treaty is nothing, and no, treaties never die. We don't pay enough attention to treaty and the creed behind treaty and the sanctity of treaties, right? These are unspoken languages, but they do exist and are quite valid in today's legal hemisphere. And everyone within the legal field will agree with me. I speak relevance, I speak potency, I speak the facts, I don't speak what you're growing up hearing. You know, I've done my own research. I've sat at round tables with great philosophers and great ideologies, great people who have done their research, great people who are a part of the culture and live for the culture. So now I have taken up the mantle and the responsibility to save my culture, because we have lost our way for 283 years since signing our treaty.
Well, here's the thing, because I agree with you. Treaties don't die and so on. The issue, though, is that it's how the treaty is put into effect. What does it look like in 2021? And I think that's one of the difficulties that a lot of people have had, that they hear a state within a state, but what they see or what they think they're seeing is a community that relies on itself for things that suit it, such as your counsel, your adjudication, your discipline, and so on. But at the same time, very much still relies on the government of Jamaica for some of the services to the community. So is the treaty meaningful when you are not a self-contained and self-sufficient state?
We are a self-contained state. We aren't yet self-sufficient. So while I agree with you, there is confusion in the duality of jurisdiction which exists, because let's not fool ourselves anymore. Let's put aside the silly rhetorics, right? This is a duality of jurisdictions. What people fail to understand and fail to realize is leadership and governance, good government systems, having those in place to then establish your diplomatic engagements and relations have been what's lacking in the Maroon history since our treaty has been signed. So yes, you are right. There are things that currently or in the past, the Maroon governments or previous administration would have been heavily reliant on, instead of focusing on their own agenda to realize what they sit on in the 1738 treaty. It's not that we're listen. The 1738 Treaty of Peace and Friendship was signed on the blood. It was signed to allow what we would now consider transfer of property, right, to the indigenous people, the landowners, the Maroons, the Moors, the Maroons. We are here, right? We are the people of the land. That's what that was. I hear the rhetoric and the slanging around of the Maroons being runaway slaves. Get it right. There isn't a treaty in the world that is signed with a runaway slave. Treaties are signed with owners of land, people who are proprietors, sovereign people. An empire would not sign a treaty with someone on a sovereign land, right? That person does not belong to that land, is a slave. He was property of that empire. It doesn't happen. Stop fooling ourselves.
So tell me what's on your agenda then? What's on your to-do list in terms of furthering?
Diplomacy.
Tell me what that means and what that is going to look like.
What that means and what that looks like is removing bureaucracy. Let us know, start talking. Let us know, start realizing that the voice of the people, which represent the sovereign state of Accompong, have spoken in that we now are ready to move and realize our legacy. So when I say diplomacy, I'm talking about moving forward the agenda of economic independence, because all that means is then the reliance that we now have. We're looking to now alleviate the dependency on that. We want to now choose the destiny that is divine, that is inherited, that our ancestors have left here for us. We have failed to put it to use. We have reduced ourselves. We have subordinated ourselves. So I will correct you on the state within a state argument that also can be misleading. We are a state.
What you're correcting me on exactly?
The state within a state.
The phrase
also convey an understanding of dependency. Now, what has been common does not mean is fact. Am I making any sense?
I'm listening to you, man. But I'm at sports. I'm going to beg you a few more minutes after the sports chief, Corey. Really want to continue a little bit, at least for another 10 minutes if you could. Let me ask you to hold on. My producer will be talking to you because I have to go to sports. We're talking to the new colonel of the Accompong Maroons, Chief Richard Corey, who I'm asking to give me a little bit more time because I'm fascinated by this conversation. Soon come. All right, thank you so much for staying with us on Beyond the Headlines. We're into our Hot Topic segments. A little later in the program, we will be taking your calls. Our numbers 9262178, 9268631, 9267615, and our toll-free number 1-888-991-2080. So I'd ask the new colonel of the Accompong Maroons, with whom we were speaking, to come back and talk to me just for a little bit more, Chief Richard Corey, because I'm really interested in some of what he's saying, his vision for his community, and wanted to explore that a little bit more. Thank you so much for giving us a little bit of extra time. Really appreciate it. All right, let me ask you to help me out. Let me ask you to help me out here, Chief, because I'm a little bit confused, because I'm hearing independence on the one hand, but on the other hand, not. So let me just try and figure out exactly what it is your position is in relation to your community. So you would describe, let me put it that way, would you describe Accompong as independent?
We are a sovereign state. Whilst over the years, right, we have benefited from government programs, government initiatives. We are an independent entity. We are an independent state.
Okay. So, all right.
Yeah,
so
it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear. There's no confusion there, you know.
No, well, there isn't.
To really
no, there isn't.
On that. Let me tell you what it is. It's perpetuation of information that is misleading. And it's a perpetuation of leadership that has not paid attention to their culture and their history and to law. Well, I have done my due diligence. I've done my due diligence in history. I've done my due diligence in law. I've paid attention to treaty law. And I've done a lot of work in trying to understand, just talking with the elders.
Yeah, which is what I'm asking you to help us with. Because I don't think it's lack of understanding of what a sovereign state is. I don't think that is it. I just think over the years, when people see Accompong, they don't see it operating like a sovereign state. So, for instance, right? So, exactly. So, what would you mentioned diplomacy? But tell me, what would change? So, for instance, if I go to any sovereign state apart from Jamaica, that's obligated to let me in because I'm Jamaican. For instance, you have checks and balances. Who are you? Are we going to let you in? We can refuse to let you in. Accompong operates just like any village or town in Jamaica. You drive through and you do anything, you do what you want to do. Kind of
not
thing.
Necessarily, no, that's not correct.
Sorry, that is
not correct.
Okay, what I mean is you drive in, nobody knows stop you. Is what I'm saying. And that's one of the things.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was going to say, and that is, I think, certainly going to be one of the big issues for people, because when people think of a sovereign state, I can't think of any state where you're crossing from one to another and there isn't, for instance, some kind of border check. Even if it is, for instance, in the European Union, let me use the European Union, for instance, where they do have, as we say, a union, and you can freely move from one to the other. But again, that doesn't mean that you don't have a check on papers at the borders. You do. So tell me how that works in your mind, or if that's even an issue for you.
All right. So first of all, because a fence or a wall doesn't exist, doesn't mean a boundary doesn't exist. Correct. That's the first thing.
Correct.
Right. The second thing is that, in essence, you do believe in failure of diplomacy, right? You do believe in failure of government, right? You do believe in people failure in comprehending, interpreting, and applying knowledge, right?
Sure.
And applying history and applying facts.
Sure.
These are some of the issues that we as Maroons face. So where there should have been focus on all these things you have mentioned, there wasn't. It doesn't mean that it's not supposed to be there. It doesn't mean we're not entitled to it. It just means we have to move forward now cautiously and appropriately in asserting and affirming it. It simply means diplomacy. Jamaica is a signatory to the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. That document speaks to being a facilitator for indigenous rights. All we're saying is 1738 still exists. And I'm saying at the end of it all, what it will come to is diplomacy. And what it will mean is working hand in hand and having government to government interaction, engagements, and partnerships. That's what it means.
So, which I mentioned that I do know you have your council, for instance, that hears disputes and so on. But do the laws of Jamaica apply in Accompong?
Does the law of Jamaica apply in Accompong?
So, for instance, let me use one of the most extreme examples. If there's a homicide, let me use one of the extreme examples. If there's a homicide, if there is a murder in Accompong, what happens?
Right. If there's a murder in Accompong, there's an investigation which does involve the police.
Which does?
We recently and unfortunately had one in January. Ms. Darcy, may our soul rest in peace. So, we have also, let's keep it very sad. Yes, if there's a homicide, it does involve the police. Otherwise, and outside of a homicide, all other issues are handled internally.
Okay, so again, you see one of the difficulties people have, because if it is that you're not entirely self-contained in relation to your ability to handle disputes within your borders, if it is that when it comes to if it is that when it comes to something like, as soon as I finish, if it is that when it comes to something like, as I said, a homicide, you then call in police from outside, which is what you're doing there, the domestic police, not an international organization like Interpol, but you're basically asking Jamaica's domestic police now to come and exercise jurisdiction. You know something, I'm sorry, I'm actually thinking as I'm talking. Is it actually that you invite them to exercise jurisdiction, or is it actually that they have jurisdiction and you don't have the power to keep them out? Because those two things are completely different.
All right. So let me pull it here for a second. Let me put it to you in perhaps let me construct it in a model that you would be familiar with. Does the Jamaica legal enforcement or Coast Guard rely on the DEA or the Drug Enforcement Agency to conduct operations they might not be able to handle within their capacity right now?
By agreement and treaty in some specific instances.
Okay.
But if you're talking about if once you're in the Jamaican jurisdiction,
that's all I would leave it at. But
no. But that's the reason I said. That's the reason why I said
we're on the same plot.
Okay, that's why I said the distinction is important, because Americans can't come here and exercise their jurisdiction.
And that's the same thing, unless it's with invitation, right, or some diplomatic engagement. That is my point. We were already engaged in diplomatic engagement. It is in the treaty, right? On the event of murder, the police comes in. So that's what I'm saying. It's going back to what was established. I'm not challenging anything here. I'm saying let us not be partial in how we implement what these entitlements are, right? That's what I'm saying. So you led right into my point, right? In that there has been diplomacy before, and there should be diplomacy in perpetuity as per the 1738 treaty for the born and the unborn.
Does the Jamaican government, okay, I'm at the break. Let me just take the break there. A little bit of business and come back. We're talking to Chief Curry. Chief Richard Curry is the new colonel of the Accompong Maroons, talking to me about issues affecting the community. And when we come back, I want to hear about his vision for his community. So stay with us. Soon come. Thank you so much for staying with us as we continue our talk with the new colonel of the Accompong Maroons, Chief Richard Curry. So we've spent a lot of time talking about the status of Accompong, and we can come back to that another time because I do want to do some more reading of my own as we continue that conversation. But I don't want to leave the conversation without asking you, Chief, about your vision for Accompong and where you want to take the community. Whoops. I think I actually lost him. My apologies. Let me see what is happening here. But as I was saying, it's absolutely just fascinating, I think, listening to Chief Curry talk. So I think it's a concept. I have to admit, I haven't done any research on it other than, what's been in the public domain in terms of Accompong, what it is, and so on. But this concept of the indigenous people and the state and the sovereign state of Accompong, as I've been saying, has always been fascinating to me. Okay, so I do think I lost him. So I don't know if I'm going to have to call him back. Oh no, he's back with us. Okay, Chief, thank you so much for rejoining us. I appreciate it. I was saying that...
Sorry for that. I'm in transit, so I apologize for breaking up.
No, man, I thank you so much for giving us a little bit more time. So as I was saying, I want to go and do my own research and reading a little bit more so we can, in terms of the status of Accompong. But I didn't want to wrap up the discussion without asking you more about your own vision.
Yes. All right. Well, let me tell you something. First, I want to just take time out to say thank you to all my voters, who really put out for the change, who really took time out to listen to my vision. I'm talking Windsor, Aberdeen, Elderslie, Garlands, Mulgrave, Retirement, Whitehall, Cedar Spring, Bethsalem, Kingston, Mobile Fraternity, everyone who turned out for the change, give thanks, and I won't let you down. I'm here for the cause, I'm here for the culture. The vision, is rebuilding our nation, through stronger families and effective representation. Right now, my focus is on putting my government together, structuring ourselves and putting in place the supporting pillars to drive the Maroon agenda. And at the top of that agenda is economic independence. Right, so I'm sure I'll be back here sometime soon. I'm sure I'll have a lot more to discuss at that point. But I'm very grateful for just you giving me the airtime to showcase or share just what I have built inside me from the culture, right? Speaking for the culture and here for the culture. So thank you so much for your time this evening.
What does being a Maroon mean to you?
It means being a leader of liberation, right? A freedom fighter, right? A catalyst, a catalyst for change. That's what I view myself as. I view my nation as. I view my people as. We're catalysts for change. Everywhere we go, we set precedents. We go around and we establish a domain for ourselves in what we do and how we do it. So I'm proud to call myself a Maroon. I'm proud to affirm that I am a Maroon. I'm proud to affirm that I am an indigenous man. I am the land. I am the nation. I am the Maroon.
I'm actually getting some questions from listeners for you. Carol is asking, how long is your term?
The term is 5 years, and we have an election similar to the general election every 5 years, which is not quite the traditional way, but this is what it has evolved to in recent times.
So when you spoke just now about putting in place your government, what does that entail?
my council. So my different members of the council will be responsible for different engagements, projects, and that will provide me with the tools necessary to achieve the mission and the vision that I have in store for my Maroon people.
All right, the question here, let me just read the question, because I think I'm seeing it in two different ways. You can see how you see it. Horace is asking if you have plans to declare the United States of Accompong.
I have plans to set my government or put my supporting pillars in place and get the ball rolling. That's what I plan to do.
Is it necessary to declare Accompong as a United States?
What is necessary now is to tidy up the affairs of the community and refocus the agenda, reshape our culture, put in place the systems that are necessary to move us forward as a sovereign nation.
Is what should I say? It's a modern era. How the Maroon subsist now in the modern era, where there's so much. I mean, small islands like Jamaica, for instance, have so much trouble in terms of cultural appropriation and cultural infiltration from the United States and so on. How do you, as a Maroon state, stand up to that? How do you? Because I remember, and against the background of the fact that I remember, for instance, there have been stories about how people come to the annual festivities and, people selling American apple and T-shirt and all kind of things. So how do you maintain the culture within the kind of bombardment of outside cultural influences that we all are subject to now?
And that's again pride in your culture and pride in what your belief systems are set up to support. So if we're in belief of our culture and what we have, then the ideologies, the frameworks, the blueprint of everything that flows underneath should then support that overarching vision. If it is not, then something fell apart in governance, something fell apart in planning, something fell apart in succession planning, something fell apart in recognizing and maintaining the legacy and the culture of our people. So I really don't want it to be that we lose that focus anymore. I want for us to now gather ourselves, unify our people, and put ourselves behind this agenda, which I promise you will not let you down.
All right, so I'm trying to understand now this dispute, use that word, between what seems to be you and L.A. Lewis. What is the Nyan Ho Pong Maroon government? How does that relate to your government?
There's absolutely no dispute between myself and L.A. Lewis. I have made a statement with regards to the actions and carrying on of L.A. Lewis. And I, nor the Maroon, the Trelawney Town Maroons, have any affiliations or any arrangements or agreements with L.A. Lewis and the Nyanko Pong tribe. So that's as much as I'm prepared to state. I do not carry unnecessary baggage. I do not have any personal. Well, you know what? Let me not say I do not carry any personal emotions. When something affects my culture, I will speak out against it. When something threatens and plays against the morals of my people, I will speak against it. And especially when we are being affiliated with a wannabe tribe, then I have to speak out to protect a legacy. 1738 belongs to one tribe, and that's it.
Sure, I understand you don't want to get personal, but given that he has said he's asking you to give an account, just reading from the story in the Star, give an account of your financial earnings to the Nyanko Pong government, and he says if that doesn't happen, you'll be charged with 21 days after the publication, you'll be charged for treason, which is why I'm trying to understand what that has to do with your government and if there is validity to that threat in your view?
First, ask a jurisdiction, and I will leave it right there.
I have no idea. That's why I've never even heard of the Accompong Maroon government, which is why I was asking if there's any relationship. Is it a part of Accompong? I freely admit I don't know Maroon law, which is why I asked.
No. No. Of course, all fair and valid questions. But as I said, right now my focus is on settling my government and putting in place my team and getting to work.
So would it be correct or fair then to say you're not concerned about the threats coming from LA Lewis?
Absolutely not.
All right. So what do you look for in putting together your team now?
Qualified individuals who share similar love and sentiment for the culture, but also people who can, get behind the vision, bring with them their abilities, whether technical, or otherwise, to join forces in achieving the deliverables of my government.
Speaking of qualifications, I'm nearly out of time, but tell me a little bit more about your background. As I said, I mentioned that I have heard you came from Monroe, or you went to Monroe. What happened after that?
Yes, I went to Monroe College where I studied the business subjects. I then went on to the University of Technology where I got a degree in accounts and international business. I later did my MBA in banking and finance at the Mona School of Business, and have since been working in the finance sector, the consumer goods sector, beverage, most recently the beverage industry. So I've been around the block in terms of corporate engagements for quite some time.
Has it always been your goal to come back and lead your people?
Never. I would never consider myself a politician before. I always looked at life in living it and living it to its fullest. And I would come back home to St. Elizabeth in Accompong and just realize that in my 40 years that the only growth and development that has taken place is people returning home and building up their homes. Really, like, absolutely ridiculous, and I had made several attempts to try and help and move the stone, but the stone could just not be budged. So I just decided to go for sledgehammer and just walk in myself and try a thing. And, I think I was very clear in my vision and clear in the objective, and I think the message resonated with the people, and, they have spoken. I think they have spoken loud and clear.
So how would you describe your current frame of mind?
Current frame of mind is healing my people. My current frame of mind is doing everything necessary to preserve my culture. My frame of mind is getting the assistance and working with the friends of indigenous people to realize our true ambitions, to realize our true destiny. That's where my mind frame, my headset is at this moment.
I tell you what, I have to leave it there for today. I'm out of time, but it has been a pleasure talking to you, Chief Richard Curry. Hope we can talk to you again another time. There's lots and lots more to talk about. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
It was a pleasure being here. Thank you so much for having me.
Talking there. Same to you, talking there with Chief Richard Curry, the new colonel of the Accompong Maroons. That's where we have to leave it there because we're out of time. Thank you all so much for being with us. Do come back to us tomorrow.